Mr. Piccolo here. So I want to go over today's assignment with you and kind of walk you through how I would do it and kind of show you my thinking behind it. And this is all going to be a part of our final project where we analyze Ralph Fletcher's funeral. Um, so I've had a couple of people reach out and kind of tell me like, hey, I have an issue navigating to where the assignments are, or I'm not sure, you know, how to do this whole digital thing, what the best way to work is. So I want to kind of walk you guys through that as I would do it. So I'm going to go ahead and close everything I have up here. I'm going to close all my tabs. So this way, all you're seeing on my screen is our Google Classroom, so I can walk you through how I would do it as if I were you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check today's post. Today I kind of tell you the three parts of the assignment that need to be completed. Part one is the prompt and instructions for our literary analysis response. That's not due until June 19th. That's going to be our overall project. Part two is our short Google quiz today. That's what we're going to be walking through, and that's going to help us actually with our final project. And part three is this video. It's just watching this video. Also, I'll be hosting a live Google Meets class today from 12 to 1, just like every other Tuesday. I hope to see you guys there. All right, so wasting no more time, I'm going to go right over to classwork. And I see here I have my funeral theme quiz, right? That I know I have to do today. And I have my text of Funeral by Ralph Fletcher. So I'm going to open both. First, I'm going to open Funeral by Ralph Fletcher. So this way I have the story in front of me. Okay, that's annoying. Don't worry about that. That's not going to happen to you. All right, so I want to open it in a new window. So that way I can jump back and forth. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to open my funeral theme quiz. Right? So I'm looking for the theme of Funeral by Ralph Fletcher. Now, when I say theme, I'm talking about the overall message of the text, right? Like what the author's trying to tell me by writing this story. You guys should remember from when we were actually in the school building, I went over the two parts of theme with you guys a few times. So we have the thematic topic and we have the thematic statement. What we're looking for is the thematic statement, right? So it's a whole sentence that tells me the message of the story. The thematic statement. It's a full sentence. Now, the thing that's going to help us figure out the thematic statement are the thematic topics. So the thematic topic is like, just one or two words usually. It can be things like, friendship, loyalty, anger, fear, love, growing up, struggle, right? These are all big ideas that texts deal with, but they're not specific statements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my classroom, right? And I'm going to look at my options on the quiz for different themes. Option 1, adults often don't understand the bond between childhood friends. Goodbyes can be hard, but they help us appreciate our friendships. Childhood friendships are the strongest form of friendships. There is nothing more tragic than leaving behind a childhood friend. So I know off the bat, just from the fact that the word friend or friendship appears like a million times here, that friendship is like the thematic topic that we're going to be dealing with. Now, there might be others in the story, but I know that we're primarily dealing with friendship, friends, childhood friends, right? These are all thematic topics. So now I have to figure out what's the thematic statement? What is the author trying to say about these things? So I'm going to go back to my text, right? And I'm going to read through it again. I'm not going to read it aloud again. You guys have access to that other video where you can go back and hear me read it aloud and break it down step by step. I'm just going to summarize it real quick and kind of walk through, um, how I would determine the theme here. So we have Ralph. He's moving. His friends come to the door while, they're getting ready, while Ralph and his father are getting ready to move. And they say, "Come on, you're coming with us to the woods." And his dad lets him go, and they're walking to the woods, and he says, "Where are we going?" And his friends say, "We're going to go have a funeral." And he says, "A funeral for who?" And they say, "For you." He laughs it off. He's like, "Yo, I'm not dying. I'm just moving." And they're like, "Well, you're going to be dead to us." Right? So that's kind of sad. So they go into the woods. They make Ralph lay in like this shallow grave that they dug for him, and they cover him with leaves and stuff. And they eulogize him pretty much. They talk about how great of a friend he was and all the fun times they had, and their memories of him. And Ralph's laying there in these leaves, and he's remembering all of the times that they had as friends together. And, when he opens his eyes, they're gone. And he thinks about all the good times that they've had and all the good memories and how much he loves his friends and the great childhood that they had together. And then Jimmy, who I'm assuming is his like brother or his dad, calling, "Come on, we gotta go," at the end. So then he says, "Coming," I yelled back. I sat up and brushed off the pine needles. Bits of light danced in the deep forest shadows around me. I knew I'd never forget that place. Then I stood up and stepped into my new life, whatever that might be. So he gets up and he moves on from this, childhood that he loved and his friends that he loves into his new life. And the tone here is kind of like, brave and optimistic. So we know that the tone is kind of what I would call bittersweet. And what I mean by bittersweet is that, there's a sadness. There's a sadness about leaving his old friends behind, but he's also happy about the fact that he had those friendships and he had those experiences, and now he's able to move on into his new life in kind of like a brave way, right? He says, "I stood up and stepped into my new life, whatever that might be." So that sounds like he's being kind of brave about it. So knowing that, I'm going to go back to my quiz. So all of these could possibly be themes, right? They could possibly be thematic statements that would relate to the story. And if you guys were just strictly making up your own themes off the top of your head based on the story, I wouldn't be mad at any of these. I wouldn't say that any of these are particularly wrong. But we do have a best one in here somewhere. So let's see. So let's start with the first one. Adults often don't understand the bond between childhood friends. So this could be true, right? The reason I wouldn't choose this one though is because we don't talk much about that in the story, right? The dad says, "Yeah, go on, go with your friends one last time." So if anything, that kind of shows that the dad does kind of understand that this is important to him, right? He's like, it is important that he gets to go and say goodbye to his friends. He just has to be back by a certain time. Um, Goodbyes can be hard, but they help us appreciate our friendships, right? So far I'm liking this one because we cover this in the story, right? It's hard. He starts to cry a little bit when he starts thinking about leaving his friends behind, just like you would at a real funeral, right? It's emotional. But they help us appreciate our friendships, right? So he talks about how he like remembers the place and he's able to move on bravely. So far I'm really liking this one. Goodbyes can be hard, but they help us appreciate our friendships. That's one that I'm really liking so far. Childhood friendships are the strongest forms of friendships. This also may be true. This may be a good one. Um, but I don't know if the story necessarily deals with that message so much, right? Because they don't compare it to anything, right? They don't compare these childhood friendships to any of Ralph's later friendships. So we don't know if they're the strongest or not, right? We know that they create a lot of memories. We know that they were strong friendships, but we don't really compare it to anything. So we don't know if this is the strongest. And there is nothing more tragic than leaving behind a childhood friend. Now, I don't think that is the story, right? Like, I don't think that's what the story's telling me. Because I can think of a million things more tragic than leaving behind a childhood friend, and at no point in the story does it like, like Ralph isn't a mess at the end. Like, if something was truly tragic, like the most tragic, sad, awful thing, Ralph would be a mess at the end. He would be crying. He would be, kicking, screaming. He would be traumatized. But he gets up, right? He, moves on with the love of his friends, and he goes on into his new life. So if I were to choose, I would choose this as my theme. Goodbyes can be hard, but they help us appreciate our friendships. And I think that this is well illustrated in the story because it shows, those emotional moments, but it also shows how much, they appreciate each other and how Ralph carries those friendships with him into his new life, how he carries the memory of those friendships with him. So I would select that probably as my theme. So now, when we're writing our essay, we're going to need to use evidence. So the follow-up question is, which section from the text best supports our answer up here? So if we determine that goodbyes can be hard, but they help us appreciate our friendships, we're going to go down here and we're going to try to find the best evidence that supports this answer. Now, I really helped you guys out with number one because this, in my opinion, is the best answer. And since I'm making the quiz, it's pretty safe to assume that that's the correct answer. So what I want you guys to do, without my help, unless you need help and you come to the Zoom session later, is pick which of these quotes from the story, which part from the story, best supports this idea that goodbyes can be hard, but they help us appreciate our friendships. Is it when the dad says, "All right, but we're leaving at 10 o'clock sharp," he said. "When you hear me beep the horn, you come right away, okay?" Or is it, "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye," he announced. "We have gathered here to lay rest the soul of our departed friend, Ralph Fletcher. Would anyone like to speak?" Is it, "About a month ago, John Berkowitz tried to beat me up, and Ralph told John, 'You'll have to beat me up first.' So, John Berkowitz punched him instead. He was a brave friend. Stupid, but brave." Or is it, "My eyes started to water. I tilted my head so they wouldn't notice and stayed quiet. Nobody spoke. I thought of all the things I'd done with these guys." So, which of these do you think is, the best supporting evidence to this theme? And we're going to be using this evidence and this theme in our writing, so do not skip this. It will make your life easier, I promise. And I hope to see you guys later on today at 12 noon for our Google Classroom session. Take care.